Ready for the dictation? Ready. Start. Mr. Deputy Chairman, I rise to support the bill. Stop. The bill deals with some of the practical problems of implementation of a very useful measure. Stop. Till 1948, in this country, we had the legislation to deal with the minimum wage problem. Stop. All wages, particularly minimum wages in the country, were fixed by tribunals, and earlier than the tribunals, they were fixed by some committees. Stop. We in Uttar Pradesh, for example, had the good fortune of the minimum wage of textile labor in Kanpur being fixed by a committee in 1938, over which Dr. Rajendra Prasad, now the President of India, himself presided. Stop. In Bombay, they had a committee with Mr. J. Ramdas Daulatram as chairman, and that committee fixed the minimum wages. Stop. That was the pattern of fixation of minimum wages till 1948. Stop. But then this pattern, this sort of enquiry was not a feature of the day to day life of the workers of the country. Stop. Only in case the workers were vocal, only in case the workers were organized and demanded the fixation of a minimum wage, the government took the unusual step of appointing an enquiry committee which took years. Stop. The recommendations did not have any statutory force behind them. Stop. The reports of those committees were import documents which prepared public opinion, and which it was for the workers and the employers to try their strength. The workers had public opinion behind them. Stop para. The Act of 1948 was a step in the right direction, a step in accordance with the convention of the ILO, which makes it necessary that minimum wages should be fixed. Stop. This act was a remarkable piece of legislation because it provided protection and help to workers who were, by the very nature of their employment, by the very nature of the industries in which they were employed, not in a position to organize themselves sufficiently strongly, were not in a position to win a minimum wage for themselves by their own organized strength, as workers in the Ahmedabad and Bombay textile industry did long ago. Stop. The Minimum Wages Act was an act to help the poorest, the most downtrodden sections of the toiling population of our country. Stop. Many industries in this country were prospering on sweated labor, and this act made it necessary for them to pay minimum wages. Stop para. These minimum wages only provided them with the barest means of subsistence, and it was very necessary that it should have been done. Stop. This legislation was, of course, necessary because the workers in most of these industries, which are mentioned in parts 1 and 2 of the schedule in the Parent Act, were not organized enough. Stop. The Act of 1948 has not been implemented as expeditiously and as widely as we would like. Stop. There are serious industries like the tannery industry in Uttar Pradesh, where the minimum wages have not been fixed in spite of the fact that the act is 13 years old. Stop. There are other instances also from other states. Stop. In the case of agricultural labor, the progress has been much slower than it was expected, though the original act in 1958 laid it down that the minimum wages for agricultural and industrial workers should be fixed within 3 years. Stop para. Sir, it is now 13 years since that act came into being, and we find that even after these 13 years, in the case of agricultural labor, we have not done what was originally intended to be done in 3 years. Stop. There are undoubtedly a number of practical difficulties, but there is also a fact to be reckoned, reckoned with, that all the state governments are not equally enthusiastic about fixation of minimum wages for agricultural laborer. Stop. It is correct to say that it will be no use fixing minimum wages and not being able to enforce them. Stop. But that was something which was taken into consideration when the original bill was considered. Stop. When the Minimum Wages Act of 1948 was enacted, all this was taken into consideration. Stop. It is only reasonable to expect that minimum wages for agricultural labor will be fixed as quickly as possible, and that those states which have not done so will be pulled up by the center as best as the center can. Stop. The present bill mainly deals with that situation. Stop. It is correct, sir, as has been stated in the statement of objects and reasons of the bill. In the case of those industries in the schedule, those suited industries for which this act was meant, quite a substantial percentage of workers has been covered, but the same cannot be said of agricultural labor. Stop. It would have been much better if the government was in a position to say the same about agricultural labor. Stop. It is because of lack of enthusiasm on the part of state governments that our labor ministry has come to this house. Stop. Overall.